pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we got any public comments to start out with? Okay, if not, puts us down to the Sanitary Department rate study proposal.
I'll make a motion to approve your.
Oh, yeah, we should do that, shouldn't we? Got a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Patty, second by Elise. To set the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Motion carried. Now we're down to 5. You wanna introduce your guy, Kevin, or
What's that?
you wanna introduce him?
Yeah, this is Matt.
Easy enough, yeah. My name is Matt Violet with Fleece and Vandenbrink, or F&V Engineering, and this is Elaine Venema from Fleece and Vandenbrink. She is an engineer, I am not. I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Select one night, but that does not qualify. So tonight, we just wanted to come in front of you. We've been meeting with Kevin, talking about what available funding there is out there for enhancements and improvements to the sewer. And right now, the most competitive program out there is the State Revolving Fund. The State Revolving Fund is not a new program. It's a year-over-year program that's available, but with ARPA money, it's gone up 5-fold. So it used to be about 250, and now it's over 900,000, or 900 million, sorry. 250 million and 900 million. With ARPA money, there is a portion that has some availability for grant forgiveness as well. So the State Revolving Fund is technically a loan. A loan is something that you would have to bond against. But with the grant forgiveness, what happens in that process is when you get your application back from them, your loan approval, it will list out whether or not you qualified for any loan forgiveness and what that is. The nice part about this type of product is that State Revolving Fund is not something that you are necessarily committed to until you sign the dotted line. So when you get that packet back from them and they say, this is your program and this is what we're offering you, you can go, meh, we don't like it, right? Crumple it up, throw it away. Think about what you're gonna do next. So we've sat down based on some of the needs that Kevin's expressed from the plant. Traditionally, I&I was the big one, which is infiltration into the system, and that's where you're getting basically surface water, underground water, water table water into the sewer system, and now you're processing it as waste. And so that is, kind of the basis for this, but there's some other things that we'll explore in that process that will get you out there. Part of the process in that proposal that's in front of you is what's called PER, preliminary engineering. Preliminary engineering is what really comes up to the proposal plan in order for you to present to the state under an SRF fund to ask for money. It basically says you've done your due diligence, you've identified what the problems are, you meet the criteria that they've set, and this is why you're asking for what you're asking for. The sewer fund has some money in it and has the ability to fund some of that, but it doesn't have to fund it all. And so this gives you the opportunity as a community to really leverage that ARPA funding that's out there right now. This will likely be the last year of the loan forgiveness because the ARPA money is going to start going away. So again, the State Revolving Fund traditionally is just a straight loan. It doesn't have any grant forgiveness or loan forgiveness. Right now it does, and so it's a good time to apply for it and see what you can do. We've had communities that have gotten in excess of $4 million in loan forgiveness. So it doesn't have to be a big community either. I mean, Reed City got 80% loan forgiveness on, I think, a $4 million loan. So it all depends on the community, it all depends on the package. We can't guarantee you any type of loan forgiveness or what that package is gonna look like from the state until it comes. But what I wanted Elaine to come in and talk about on the engineering aspect of what that proposal is in front of you, how it applies to you guys, explain I&I a little bit and the state's requirements on it, talk a little bit more about the SRF. I heard Patty mention that the rate study is not covered in that. The rate study is something that's done by a financial institution. We're not a financial institution. And so a financial person has to do the rate study because it has to be impartial from the engineering. Whether that's a bigger ultimately, the end of it, you just have to decide whether this merits action or no action when you go in front of your next council meeting. And if it merits the time to, divulge this. The last time you did a CIP kind of workup at the plant was 14 years ago, in 2009. And Kevin's done a great job ticking off a lot of the items that were on that, rebuilding a lot of stations, replacing pumps, and really squaring away things that needed to get squared away. But in those years, things also have changed. It's time to do one of those again to get you where you need to be, and you need that in order to apply for that money from the state, one of those type of PDRs, which includes a CIP. So, any quick questions for me before I hand it over to her? Okay. Good, I'm good enough for the rest of my phone.
All right, so, yeah, like Matt said, I'm Elaine, I'm a project engineer, project manager at Peace Management. I specialize in asset management planning and funding, do a lot of grant and loan applications, and also specializing in hydraulics and infiltration and inflow studies, looking at the sewer system in particular. So we met with Kevin. I understand that he's done a lot of work on the pump stations recently, so I feel like the pump stations are in pretty good shape. The bigger issue is probably the manholes themselves, I guess, when it gets real rainy and when the groundwater levels come up. Some of those manholes actually water that's seeping in. So we wanna actually go out and inspect every manhole and look at the condition of it. There's a rating system for manholes and for sewer pipes, but for manholes, it's the NASCO, which is the National Association of Pipe. They have a rating system with defects from minimal 1 all the way up to 5, which is like imminent. And SRF, the state revolving fund, will pay for rehab of structural defects that are a 4 or 5. So you have to document that as part of the project plan. So there's a lot of manholes out there between the two lake areas, so we would pop the covers of them and inspect them from the surface and take pictures. We have a really big light. We shine down there, take pictures, really try to see where the problems are and identify how to rehabilitate that, whether it's some grout, if they're concrete manholes, maybe they just need some grout patching, maybe they need an epoxy lining coating system. So that's something we would work on from the manhole inspection side. We would also take a look at some of the valve chambers. I know the pump stations themselves, the pumps are in good shape, but there's another structure right next to the pump station wet well that needs to get inspected. Some of that valve and piping is all original, so we need to take a look at that and see if those need to be addressed as part of a 20-year, capital improvement plan. Like Matt said, SRF is usually just a loan program, and I'm like right in front of that, I'm sorry. Is usually just a loan program, but for the last couple of years, they got the ARPA money, they've got some money from the bipartisan infrastructure bill at the federal level that funneled money through the states for infrastructure improvements for wastewater systems. And it's likely that fiscal year 2025 will be the last year that Eagle has a big pot of loan and grant, or loan forgiveness or grants to hand out. So we don't wanna miss that last year to take advantage of it. And even if you only get like a 40% principal forgiveness or 50% principal forgiveness, the loan itself is subsidized. So if you're familiar with how the interest rates have been going lately, the market rate keeps going up. Well, the SRF is a subsidized loan, so I don't know what the rate is going to be this year, but last year it was 1.875% and 2% depending on where your median household income fell. So it's quite a bit lower than the market rate that you could go get at a bank right now. So even if the grant isn't a huge amount, once the state pulls together their thing, it's still a nice, probably the best one out there right now. Rural Development also has a grant and loan program, but they didn't get quite as much of the ARPA money, and their rates are higher. So that's a little bit about that. I'll make sure I covered all of this. There's actually a couple different steps in the SRF application, process. The first step is the field work. We talked about doing the inspection and pulling together the data, kind of looking at the flow data from the plant that Kevin takes down and showing to Eagle that there is an infiltration and inflow problem. The state has some pretty specific guidelines you have to meet to document that. So we'd be looking at the flow rates to the plant compared to rain and things like that, and showing the state that yes, you do meet those criteria. And then the inspections and kind of putting together a alternatives analysis to kind of look at different ways to address the infiltration and inflow, and getting your infrastructure ready to serve the township, the community for the next 20 to 30 years. So the second step is what's called an intent to apply form, and it's just like a one pager, but basically it's some basic information about the township, and then a very preliminary total project number, kind of based on some preliminary review of the needs. And that would go to the state in November, this coming November. And if you miss that, then you can't finish the full application. So you gotta get that one done in November. I think it's November 1st, which seems like a really long time from now, but the way time keeps going, I don't know how we're already halfway through June. So that's coming up in the fall, and then that kind of lets Eagle know, hey, we have a project that we're looking to do a project plan full application for. You'll have probably a virtual meeting with an Eagle SRF project manager and kind of discuss it, and they'll kind of walk you through the process like I'm doing now. But then we'll write the project plan, which is a pretty lengthy engineering document. Eagle's got some very specific requirements what you have to have in there. You've got to look at population and projections and flow rates and growth for the next 20 years, because you don't want to get a loan that has a 20-year loan period and then not plan out for at least 20 years. So we look at that. We look at the best way to solve the problems. Is it, lining? Is it replacement? Is it some operational tweaks? Whatever you can do to cost effectively take care of your needs, and then that all goes into a big engineering document. And then the final step in that project plan period is it has to go on public display. So we'll print it out, and we'll have a draft copy probably at the Township Hall here, or the Township Hall, or maybe at the DPW building, maybe post it on your website, and then there would be a public notice, so the public's aware that there's this project plan, so they can review it, and then we'll hold a public hearing, and then incorporate any public comments or word comments in it. And then the final project plan would go to the state next May. So that's kind of, Eagle accepts the project plans, they're all due in May. They score them all, and they come up with their preliminary scoring, and you'll know probably about next August, early September, where you fall on the scoring. They only have about $900 million, and they usually get requests for more than that. At least now that they've got that grant component, everybody's going in on that, trying to get that. So it is a competitively scored, but there are a couple things that will get you points, like your high flows going up from, I forget the number, but it goes up about 5 to 6 times its normal flow rate when it rains a lot. So that's a big issue. There's some other things they take into account with scoring. But then Eagle comes up with their list, so they'll show you where you fall on the list. If you're in the fundable range, they call it, how much would be loan and how much would be grant or principal forgiveness. And then they finalize that in September for the state's fiscal year. And then after that is when the township would decide whether or not you actually want to do the full project, take their funding package or not. So like Matt mentioned, you're not committing to do the project now if you do this project plan. If it's all loan and it's just not something you can swing with your rates, you can look at other options. You can look doing, certain projects now, saving up and paying for it with cash, over time, rather than doing it as one big project, so. That's kind of a rundown on the SRF, process. I know there's a lot there, but we'd be looking at the lift station, especially the valve chambers, all the manholes, and the lagoon site itself too, just to make sure the whole system would be, ready to serve the community for the next 20 to 30 years.
So in that would also include a sludge judge, which has been a while since you've done that, remember when we said it was.
I'll do one this year anyway.
Right, which you have to do this year anyway, so that would be rolled into this.
So,
So it kind of bundles it in. And then in that sludge judge, you could determine whether or not that we needed maintenance to that product, and that can be included in that SRF versus pulling it out of the fund balance. So you can pull that into that longer term loan.
you can,
Yeah.
although Eagle has specific requirements about sludge removal. Usually they view that as an operation and maintenance expense. However, if you need to remove the sludge because you need to do improvements to the pond, like the berms need to get, recompacted, maybe they've got some burrowing animals that left a couple holes, you need to get the sludge out of there so you can fix those holes, or you need to reline it or something, then you can get it pulled in as an eligible expense. But we would at least know with part of that field work how much material is in there. It's really something we like to have our younger EITs do. Back when I was younger, I did this for Edmore. It's not too far down the road, well, a little south down the road, but I was out on a rowboat with another colleague, and we had the sludge judge, and, we're out in the middle of the lagoon and pulling it up. And so we have our younger folks do that. So that was in 2007, so I was quite a bit younger than I am now, so I probably won't be the one on the boat, but it's a good experience. We like to get all of our new engineers out there to do it at least one time. It actually made it into my mother-in-law's Christmas newsletter. She thought it was really funny that I was out there in a super dude on a rowboat taking samples. We would get that done for you. Any questions that you guys have on this?
So this would include a rate study as well, because there is, again, a bonding component to this in a loan application, right? So the rate study projects out where you should be, where you need to be, where you keep, the system running correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's not always a fun thing, right, a rate study, it's a hard topic. But it's a necessary, right? I mean, you need to know where you're gonna be in 20 years and that your rates can maintain, and that you're gonna be able to continue to fund the system. And you can't always rely on a loan forgiveness or a grant forgiveness program to get you money to do things. So you have to have a durable system that, has a sustainable funding mechanism.
When you say that's, the rate study's included, I'm
The
confused.
rate study's not included.
Right,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
But you do have to have one. So we're not a financial institution, so we
Right.
don't do rate studies. So we would partner with a Baker Tilly or another organization similar to that, which is a municipal finance group. Depending on who you have experience with, we might choose one of those. And if you don't have experience with someone doing those kind of studies for you in the past, we can make recommendations. What's Warren Kramer's group, MHI or something of that nature, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's several of them that are available out there. And what they basically do is they go through all your financial portions of your sewer system and versus projections. They say, this is where you should be, and if you did this improvement, you did this loan value, this is where you should be. And so then it's a third-party financial, right? It's not something that you've done as the treasurer of the township or the clerk or, as the sewer authority. It's a third-party financial, and it's made that way so that it can't be disputed, right?
And sometimes communities choose to do that once they've decided to move forward with the loan, so we can kind of estimate approximately how much it would be. But then if you want to move forward and actually go out and do the bond, then that's usually when we would pull in the financial advisor, because they have to do that anyway. For for the state requirements, but then it would be an eligible expense under the loan, so you could roll it into the loan if you didn't have cash to pay for it at that moment.
So the budget, because we're getting ready to do the budget for 23-24. We start July 1st, we would need to budget the 32,200, but we would budget the rate study until after we were either approved or denied or whatever, once we got the information back in September.
Right, so that would be your following fiscal
Yeah.
year.
Right.
Yep.
So we talk a minute about eligible and ineligible reimbursements in this
Okay.
process.
Sure. So SRF has a very specific list of what's eligible for being rolled into the loan. And for wastewater projects, you can get your project plan as a reimbursable item, like if you didn't, if you wanted to get that rolled into the loan, but it's such a small amount that many communities don't. But if you did, you would have to go out and do a quality based selection process for your engineer at the time of, before you start the project planning stuff. What most of our communities are doing is they're doing the project plan now, to try to see like how much needs there are, and then get Eagle to figure out how much they're gonna give you for a grant or loan package. And then if you wanna move forward with the project, then you can go out for QBS, quality-based selection for engineering, design, and construction. So that if you do it that way, the project plan itself isn't loan eligible. It would be, directly out of your sewer fund now. But it gets you, timing wise, it gets you in a better place, because that QBS can take a little while. You'd have to put together an RFP, for the project plan, and you've got time to do it, but it just, summer in Michigan is short, and that's when summer and fall is when we'd like to be doing that field work, that inspection, because once stuff freezes up, it's really difficult to go out and look at those manholes. It's just not as pleasant, it's not as safe. But you could do it that way, but you still have to pay for it. You'd have to pay the engineer, and then you get it reimbursed, so it's.
But then you're financing $32,000 over 20 years. So it doesn't
Yeah,
really make
so
a
those
lot
are-
of sense.
Which is why most
financially.
of our communities are just going forward with the project plan and the preliminary work now, and then doing the quality-based selection. Once they decide, yeah, this looks like a funding program we're actually gonna do, or no, we didn't, like, we don't really wanna take out a loan on 10 million at this time, whatever it ends up being, sort of up to you at that point, in the fall, next fall. So other eligible things, the municipal financial advisor would be an eligible thing, if you did that. I guess either way, you'd have to get quotes from a couple MFAs. Eagle's really big into, I don't wanna say bidding, but they're really big into not just selecting your favorite, you have to have a quality, you have to have a good one, so, yeah. Did that cover your eligible question? Okay.
So the timeframe's the important part of SRF, right? And that's why we're talking about that now in June versus saying, hey, you need to put an ITA in November, and we haven't done any of the work yet, but we'll figure that out, right? People do it that way.
We do,
All
we
day
have,
long.
we
People do.
just did it
Yeah,
last year.
Yep, and then, so what it is you shake the snow globe and you come up with a number, and that's what your intent to apply is. And if you're way higher than that, you're not eligible to apply for way higher than that.
You can.
You can.
You just have to do a lot more explaining as to why you're coming in with a higher number
Right.
when they're due in May. It's easier if you have a good idea of what you know you need, and then your total project plan doesn't change too much from your intent to apply. That's kind of how Eagle likes it. If it's a lot different, they're like, wait, what, why? Why are you all of a sudden asking for twice as much? So, And like I said, a lot of that field work really needs to be done, when there's no snow out there, so with these being due on May first, next May first, the final project plan, that really means the draft has to be done April first, and as you know, Michigan, last year we had snow in May. So, we really need to be doing that field work, late summer, early fall, at the latest. So that's kind of why we're coming to you now. It seems like next May is a long time from now, but the older I get, the more I realize that time goes faster and faster. A year is like nothing, so. Any other questions?
You guys put that in your budget, didn't you? Thought Janice said that this morning. The 32. 30, yeah, that's what she said.
How long would you physically be here doing inspections and the sludge judging and that fun stuff?
That is a good question. And I had it in a spreadsheet, kind of. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes per manhole. So there's a couple hundred manholes out there. So, that'll take a little bit of time. The sludge judging takes about a day. By the time we get there, we kind of grid it out on paper, and then we'll put some stakes in. Because when you're in the middle of a pond, it's really hard to see, like, where am I in relation to stuff. So we'll put a couple survey stakes along the bank, and then you've got kind of a grid, so you can kind of like see, okay, I'm in between these two, and then we'll take a sludge sample there, and then we'll go a little further. We'll do a good cross section because that sludge isn't uniform across the whole thing. So that takes about a full day. There's 15 lift stations, and it takes about, I'd say, between a half an hour to an hour to look at each one, depending on how big they are and how complicated and where they are. You've got to drive to each one. So if they're farther away from each other, that'll take a little bit of time. So there's probably a couple weeks worth of field work to do.
When you're doing that field work, do you need one of us with you?
With the lift stations, we would probably just need you to kind of unlock it for us, open the hatch, kind of explain any issues. The manholes, no, we wouldn't necessarily. We'll bring our own cones and have our flashers up and on it off, so it's safe. But yeah, anything at the treatment plant or the lift stations, we probably have, just for access and stuff.
So this is an information night, so you can ask any questions you want, right? I mean, we're not here to vote on anything. This isn't a motion night. This is really to give you the opportunity to get down in the weeds and ask any questions that might be wandering in your mind. And, this really comes back to, financial due diligence, right? I mean, doing these kind of long-term plannings and reports and visioning on your facilities really are about making sure they're durable, they're sustainable, the budgets match where they need to be. There's no hidden surprises that are gonna come back and get you. Now, we can't ever guarantee that there's nothing in there that's not gonna break tomorrow, right? But, each year, it seems like things get crazier and crazier when you start talking about flushable towelettes and jamming up systems, and when you start talking about, different environmental things that are affecting stations that have never affected stations before. So there's always change and modification, but that's part of that, making sure you've got that trusted engineering partner with you that's keeping an eye on your system so that, when something goes awry, it takes care of it. Just like in water systems, you guys draw our wells here, but in a municipal water source, wellhead protection is a 50-50 grant with the state. And what it does is it documents whether or not you've looked at the way water flows into your systems and out of your systems and what things might affect them. And if something goes awry, what's your plan, right? Because if you you don't do that and something goes way off course, then they're like, well, you guys didn't plan well, you know, you didn't do your due diligence, and then you get into that nastiness of the world, so. And this isn't, you know, this isn't a protect your butt thing, this is protect the system for the generations, that's what this is. This isn't about, you know, putting a safe code on there, because everything costs money, but, you know, what we're seeing in the last, you know, 3 to 5 to 7 years is, you know, what we used to be able to do for $1 million is now $3 million, right? And so if you kick that can down the road, you know, whether it's streets, whether it's sewer systems, whether it's fire suppression, whatever it is, you know, it continually compounds with the rate of inflation. I was at a economic development summit last week, and they said the average price of a new home construction in Michigan right now is $375,000 for a 1,200 square foot home. Now that's across the entire state, right? It's not Montcalm County, but that's a scary number when you think about it, compared to where you used to be able to build a, you know, 1,200 square foot house for 70 grand, right? So my parents' house that they bought when I was in 7th grade, and I'm not that old, I'm only 50.
Okay.
They bought it for $50,000, just sold for $330,000. And it's nothing special. But the neighborhood developed around it, and they built all new homes, and it pushed the SEC up, right? And so, yeah, it's a different world that we live in terms of inflation right now, and will that go down at some point in time? I certainly hope so, but I would hate to say, well, just wait 3 more years and it'll be cheaper, because I don't think that's the case.
Not for the next several years, I don't think so.
Right.
And just wanna just stress it again, that, usually SRF program is a loan only. And because of the ARPA and the bipartisan infrastructure bill, there's some money out there for grant or loan forgiveness. They actually have different pots, but, that is likely to be the last year is the state's fiscal year 2025 projects, which is, what we would be applying for next May would be that fiscal 2025 for the state. Cause the state is on the same as the federal government, so it starts October 1, so it's kinda goofy, but talking about fiscal year 2025 is actually next October. So.
Yeah.
I don't even know, it makes a lot of sense to me to do this.
Yeah, I'm really glad you guys hooked up and we're paying attention to the maintenance of our system that we really don't wanna wreck.
Ms. Baker, you don't answer questions all the time. She's done that good of a job.
Yes.
And again, Kevin's budgeted for it this year in the fund. So, I mean, you already allocated funds to do this. That doesn't mean you have to spend it, doesn't mean you have to do it. It just means it's allocated in the budget if you choose to. And again, tonight's not an action night, but it's something for you to take home and think about and come back to your regular meeting with a, you know, decision on which way you want it to go.
Yeah,
Right.
it is.
Well, if you do have any questions in between now and when you're actually gonna vote on it, or, you know, you can table it till the next one if you want. Hopefully not though, cause like I said, summers are short in Michigan, but, I can give you, like, my phone number is in here, my cell phone's on here, and so is my email, it's in the last sentence there before my signature, so, if you need to reach me directly, feel free to do that.
If we end up going with it, how long before we
Okay, so hang on tonight.
We could probably get
I think
started
my
on it
question is,
in July.
pursued any
the
other
first week, well, maybe
the engineering firms
that's a
that did
holiday,
duct
so maybe
lighting,
it'll be after.
engineering firms that did, this is the only engineering firm that we reached out to get estimates. That's my only question. If we reached out to any other engineering firms to get estimates, you know, 'cause who do we work with Duck Lakes? Not Progressive,
Was it Spencer?
Wade Trim, yeah, that's my only question.
like Spicer did the last report. Report in 09.
In 09.
What's your thoughts, Kevin?
What's that?
What's your thoughts?
I really hadn't thought about it, I just was talking to Matt about this, and it's all kinda new, and sounded like, some problems I'm having, and if there was money out there, so I kinda like,
We're doing Edmore's system too, I mean, you can call Edmore and ask. We can give you a
It's
list
not,
of
you know,
other
it's nothing
references.
against
No,
you
no, I
guys,
understand.
but, you know, if the Eagle's requiring to, estimates or, you know, RFPs and bids from a couple of different engineering firms, it only seems.
Yeah, so for that, I wanna make that clear, so for design and construction, if you, well, I mean, you could do it for the project plan, but it's actually a qualifications-based selection, so it doesn't include the price. So, you'd have to do a request for qualifications package, so then, it wouldn't have a price, but we already gave you our price, but, we would give you a quality, qualifications package if you needed that for the project plan phase. Because it did mention that most of our clients are doing that during the design phase, cause it's a requirement for the design and construction to do it that way. Because you need to get your design and construction engineering services included in your loan typically, cause about 20% of the total project cost, so if you've got a $10 million project, most communities aren't gonna be able to cash fund that, so they have to roll it into their loan. So that's why they do the design and construction that way, but you could get another cost proposal from another firm, for the project plan work, if you wanted to,
And then I'm confused, because currently we have loans through rural development.
Mhm.
And this isn't, what's the advantages of not going
Yeah.
through rural development for that?
So rural development in the past was a really nice grant and loan package for smaller to mid-sized rural communities like this one. But like I mentioned, a lot of the ARPA money went through EPA instead of through rural development. So rural development is through the USDA, the Department of Ag, and they kinda got the shaft on getting the money for infrastructure, this time around.
So they didn't get the ARPA money?
They didn't get the
Right.
ARPA money, or not nearly as much. And also, their interest rates are tied directly to the market rate, so, they have 3 different tiers of interest rates, depending on your MHI, they have a poverty, they have an intermediate, and they have a market. And it's a set percentage of what the market is, so if the market rate's at 6%, the poverty rate might still be at, 3.5 or 4%. Whereas SRF, the state is able to set their own interest rates regardless of what the market rate is.
So you're getting the loan through the state instead of through
Correct.
rural development? Okay.
Yep, it's through the state, it's through Eagle's SRF program, and then the state municipal finance,
Finance arm, yep.
yeah.
There's a lot of that in our MTA insights, quite frequently about those. Yep.
Yeah, so right now, SRF's a much better package, it wasn't always that way, but right now with all the ARPA funding and, the way the interest rates are. Also, RD's a 40-year loan, and SRF is either a 20 or 30, so then you're not strapped with a higher interest payment over 40 years.
So the upper is 20 years?
SRF can be 20 or 30.
I do have a question, and I'm not sure if it's directed at you or somebody at the board or whatever. If we take out this loan, as in when we built the sewer systems, the taxpayers are paying that loan off. Are they paying off this one, or is the township?
Which one?
This,
This proposal, this comes out of your budget, so it's out of the taxpayer money.
The user,
The
the sewer rate.
But if
the
we,
sewer
but if
rate,
we
tied
get,
in with the sewer rates.
but
Okay.
if we,
Not like the,
if we get, if this ends up being, say, a $10 million project, I'm just throwing that out there,
Sure.
then that $10 million is paid back.
Through a bond, which would go to your sewer rates.
Okay, so then we would have to increase the sewer
You'd
rates to
have to
make up
increase
for
the
that.
sewer rates, yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so if you chose to accept the package that they offered, and you say, yes, this is a needed improvement to get us where we need to be, you're gonna have to bond for that, whether that's rural development or SRF. If you don't like the package that's offered to you, you can always phase it out and say, well, we don't wanna do the whole thing right now, we don't feel like bonding X, we'd rather take it in smaller chunks. And then you could take that same information that you've already gathered and use it for an RD loan.
Okay.
And so you wouldn't have to redo all the work, you would just reformatted into a road development loan.
Mhm.
And then you could take that in smaller bites if you wanted. However, with the grant forgiveness that they're offering, it's worth seeding. Because if you can offset 20, 30, 50% of whatever that dollar amount is, that's a windfall for the township.
Yeah. And last year, so the numbers aren't out yet for the ones that were just submitted this fiscal year, but last year, some of your neighboring communities got like 50% grant.
Means a lot right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it will not be a special assessment district, it will be paid out of the operation and maintenance budget.
And so the
Through
rate
user
study,
rates.
yep, so
Yeah.
your rate study will show you how that
Okay.
will have to apply.
Alright.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, Ms. Baker, to answer your question about, looking at other proposals, the preliminary work is pretty cut and dry. There's not really a ton of margin in it, there's not a ton of variance from engineer to engineer.
Okay.
It's about who you feel comfortable with. Could you find one that's $1,000 more, $1,000 less? Probably, but are you gonna save $5, $6, $10,000?
Joe,
What do you
you make a
think,
motion?
What do you think of,
I'm thinking we need to do something to, there's a lot of areas that
I'll make a motion,
you can't see.
to accept Fleece and Vanderbilt's proposal to go ahead with, their SRF project. Should I say that like that?
Yeah.
Extra one.
Did you hear me?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. I'll make a motion to go ahead with Fleece and Vanderbilt's proposal for the INI study and capital improvement SRF project plan, to hire them to do so.
I will second that motion.
I think she said $32,000, didn't that?
32,200.
Okay, $32,200, thank you.
motion by Nancy to go with them, seconded by Leash. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
I think the sooner the better.
So I'll send you a, professional services agreement for the,
Okay.
supervisor, the superintendent to sign, and then, we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That puts us down to number 6, compactors. Nancy?
Sarah and I did some marking today out in the community center parking lot. There's the bright pink markers, marking out a 40 by 36 foot area. I came 6 foot off the guardrail, I came all the way to the west end to go out the 40 feet. Kurt seems to still think that perhaps there's 3-phase out at Fire Barn, a full 3-phase. So I think him and I are gonna call Michelle Camp tomorrow and see what we can be told. And that's it for that one. But if you'd like to look at where it's just like the corners and a few outlines. Okay.
I'm parked up that way, so.
And it's 20 feet off that one, you can't.
Yes,
not six.
20, we came, what did I say?
Six.
Oh, well, 6, 20, I know.
Have you called consumers for a price for bringing it in here or yet, or?
I have to have a firm location before I make one more move.
Yeah.
So no, I'm sorry, could I go because of that? 6 feet, huh? I'm gonna say 20.
I remember, because I was holding the tape measure with you.
Sorry.
Okay, any more discussion on compactors? Okay, puts us down to 7, fireman equipment grant.
Yeah, and sorry, it's supposed to be the Michigan Fire Equipment Grant, so to say it right. Sarah and I went to watched the Zoom meeting, we took some notes. Basically, we could get $10,000 in grant money for certain equipment for Crystal Township, but because we service Evergreen and Ferris, I believe at 50%.
Ferris, I think, is 50, I'm not sure in Evergreen.
Okay, it would have to be a percentage. Okay, so if they weren't both 50%, if they were, it'd be 20,000.
I'd say at least 50 on both of them, or Evergreen too, because I think Sharon would only probably get 50 if they got.
Yeah, we pay so much less to Evergreen that it's unreal, but, or we get so much less from them. Anyways, anyway, I'm gonna say if we could apply for that grant, we're up to $20,000, and that would allow, the fire chief, if he wants to continue with us, to have that much in expenses that he could order, because they kind of would like you to buy it first. And that would be over and on top of what he's already budgeted for next year in equipment. So maybe he could get some of the other things that he's looking for in the future. So we need board approval to be able to do that.
So that's different than the, one that was for turnout gear?
No, it's got all that in it, yeah.
Oh, okay. So equipment, turnout gear is considered equipment?
Yep.
Okay.
Certainly is. We have turnout coats and pants, SCBA mask, gloves, structural and extraction, hoods, radios, batteries, antennas, flashlights, helmets, safety vests for traffic accidents, boots, and personal thermal imaging cameras. All apply. I need to
Was it
copy
10,000
this back.
or 20,000?
Up to 20,000, if we're gonna include what we service for Ferris and Evergreen.
Okay.
We can only get 10 for our township.
Well, but because we,
Service the other two, we can get another 5 out
and
of
we're
each
not-
one.
The percentage that we do.
right, we're not gonna split it with them, it's all for
Right.
our firemen, because we're the ones that.
Right.
For fire protection to them.
Yes. So, that's what it is.
So, make a motion?
Yeah, I do. To apply for the grant for up to $20,000 and to allow our fire chief to spend that over and above what he has already proposed for his equipment budget for next year.
I guess I second.
Motion by Nancy to apply for the grant up to 20,000. Seconded by Leish. Any more discussion?
I have an issue with automatically approving him to spend up to $20,000.
Well, they say we could, what they're saying is you need to send him an invoice. And if you will look in the things I added, there is the money in that budget. Or in that,
But I guess I struggle with a blanket $20,000 approval,
it would have to be for these specific items, Pat, that I
but
just
your
read
motion
through.
didn't say that. So that's, I just trying to
I'll
get
get
some
you a copy of this,
clarification.
this is what it would have to be for. I will make
That
you
would
a
be
copy.
good to share with the board.
Because that's the only
What we're
thing
voting on.
we could get a grant for, are these things. Can't
So,
get it for anything else. And that's up to, that doesn't mean he's gonna spend that much, it's up to that much.
So what happens if we don't get the grant? He spends it.
Well, he would, what, budgeted $60,000,
Oh,
and
he
some
did.
of these things were in here, I'm pretty sure, weren't those masks in this budget?
The self-contained, yeah.
Yep, can't tell you off the top of my head what else.
And they were expensive, and they were noted as being, that price has gone way up, and it was definitely going to be a bite into him. So, getting with him and getting some information from him to fill this out,
when is the
And-
grant application due?
July.
So we got time,
This is in June.
but we can even discuss it Wednesday. You could share the information with us and we can take a look at it, we can.
That'd be
readdress
fine,
this.
sure. As long as we don't wait
That's my
until the
discussion.
July board meeting.
It's already a motion, so you have to make a, you have to vote on it.
All in favor, say aye.
To allow us to apply for this grant?
Yeah,
I'm gonna say
that's what the
aye.
motion was already.
Okay.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carried.
And it's not that I don't support applying for the grant, but I just think an open-ended thing and not having all the board members have all the information isn't appropriate.
No, that's on me, Pat, I apologize, I should have given you a copy of this grant application, this one thankfully is pretty clear cut and dry. 2 pages.
Apparently stuff is shared But
Well,
other than that,
I believe that webinar is probably still available online, so we could all watch it at our own leisure.
Okay. Puts us down, public comment. Roger.
You might wanna check on Evergreen, I think Evergreen also might be part of Stanton Fire too. I'm not sure. I didn't know if that would figure into the,
We're waiting for some information back. We really cannot go any further until we get some more information from our fire chief anyway. But if we get it and we can apply, then let's go for it.
I'm just saying that may
He would also-
change the amount.
It would,
Yeah.
that's why I only went up 2, but I'm not going over and it could be under.
Anybody else? Roger?
You got the baby wipes problem figured out yet?
Nope.
Bigger shredders?
The shredders are taking care of the problem, it just plugs the line up.
Talk to the guys down in Carson shredding all the prison and stuff then.
Say that again?
Prison system's the same problem, but they must have figured it out, cause they're not working on their shredders that much now. The inmates is go throw 2x4s, everything down the piping, screw it up.
And that's part of the Carson City sewer system?
Yeah.
It's right on the end of Garlock and Boyer.
As a former member of the Montcalm Solid Waste Committee, if you guys haven't gone to Lakeview or Howard or Edmore and looked at those compactors yet, they solve a lot of problems.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
Okay.
they do, and I think what's the county, they want you to pay for the power and the pad, and then beyond that, they pay for everything else still.
So far, and Brenda, is also applying for a grant,
Oh, for the pad?
as much as she can.
Yeah.
So
Are
they-
the newer ones better than the older ones?
Yeah, so, Lakeview was probably a year and a half now, 2 years old.
I think so, something like that.
But yeah, if you call Darren over there, he'll sing the praises on it.
My daughter is a treasurer down to Riga Township.
Okay,
They sent theirs back.
okay.
He said they had more, I don't know, people were misusing it. She said they weren't coming out and maintaining it. I said, well, they gotta be better nowadays.
Yeah. So the
How
ones
long
that
do they
the,
have?
yeah, the
I
one
meant
that,
to ask her.
the one that the county has for this program is, they were leased compactors, I believe that's how they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And leases are coming with a maintenance agreement, so the contractor owns them, so they have to maintain it. It doesn't become the
Right.
liability of the county, so. And again, I've been off that board for almost a year now, but, when I left, it was, I mean, and there's
It's
some
still
grant
that
money that
way.
she's applying for,
It's still
so.
that way.
It's a great program if you can get into it. You know, the only thing that doesn't fit in there is Boone's Farm wine jugs. Everything else fits. So, I didn't even know they made Boone's Farm wine jugs yet in gallon size, but they don't fit.
Well, the guy came here, said one of them, somebody stuck a hog in, didn't
Yeah.
he?
Stuck a hog.
That was the regular recycle
Yeah,
bins.
because
Oh.
it's opening.
That was why we wanna do this.
I thought it was a compactor one.
No, it's not a compact. Going in and doing, we'll get it correct.
Any more public comment? Vic, go ahead.
Just listen to the sewer deal, and all the years that I've known Kevin, I finally realized he does a hell of a lot more than I ever thought.
I think that's kind of mean.
Kevin, I think he's wanting a case of beer from you.
It almost sounded like a compliment.
Thanks, Vic. Anybody else? Get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Nancy, seconded by Sarah to adjourn at 6:53. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Ben saved me. I tried to bring a couple with me, I don't know why I didn't.
I just had to grab this one out of the car and I was,
Good
We're
deal.
not gonna do a 4th of July.
it's not my Huntington pen.
Anybody needs to know?